Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by J Sporting Goods, the Yiter Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine Show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. My name is Mike Avery, and I'm so glad to have you along with us as we once again continue this celebration of this outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan, and occasionally beyond, on what is the first full weekend of summer since we have last talked. But I'll tell you what, it hasn't, I don't know what the weather's going to be like by the time you hear this show, but as we are recording it, Mother Nature has really thrown me some interesting curveballs. Even though it's officially summer, I froze my tail off on the water the other day, and as I was driving over to the marina, there was frost in the yards and in the roofs of some of the houses on the way over to the bay. And it was cold on the water that day, too. And the water temp dropped like 8 degrees. And there were a couple of other days where Mother Nature kind of had her way with us as well. And, you know, I've talked about this before. This is one of the reasons why I love to get outdoors and deal with the natural world, with critters and fish and weather, because you can't control it. And I think that's important in today's world, that we have these experiences that are beyond our control, and all we can do is adapt to the situations. We have no control over whether it's going to rain, no control over whether it's going to storm, no control over whether it's going to blow. We have limited control in getting the fish and critters to cooperate with us. Some things are just beyond our control. We have to deal with them, and I think that's wonderful. Why, you might say? Because in our everyday world, in our everyday technologically advanced world that we live in now, we are used to doing something and getting immediate gratification and an immediate reaction. You pick up your phone, you make a phone call. You touch your iPad, the screen comes alive. You click the mouse on your computer, it wakes up. Almost always, these things happen immediately, and you don't have to go through the frustration. Now, I realize there are technological frustrations, tech frustrations, right? But when we get outdoors, that goes away. A couple of examples of this. I was out fishing last weekend with Jim Boot and his family and friends. Now, Jim was one of the folks who won a charity auction and got a fishing trip with me to benefit our Trinity Monitor Lutheran School. And Jim, I appreciate your generosity. We went out into deeper water, and there was a little bit of a northeast or north blow. Wind. It wasn't really a blow. I mean, a nice chop. The boat control was there. The fishing was okay, but I got a report that there was a really hot bite going on closer to shore. So I told the crew, I said, this is only mediocre out here. Let's pull up and let's run into that shallower water closer to shore and see what's going on. And we did that. We got in there and got set up, and it went dead calm. I mean, it went from a little bit of breeze, a little bit of a blow, to dead calm, and the bugs came out. And I told my crew, I said, hey, this is what you get. You either get wind or bugs. There's one or the other. You're not going to have both. And about 5 minutes after it went dead still calm, the wind switched, and it picked up, and it started to blow. And man, did it blow. to the point where we had to pull lines and go in. And I sure was glad to have that big, beautiful, solid, stable fishing machine called an Angler Quest underneath me. And that 300-horse Merc behind us doesn't hurt either, I'm telling you what. And then yesterday I was on the water, and we were out fishing the sailboat buoys, and actually did real well fishing yesterday. The best day of the summer so far. And I could see some storms building off to the west a little bit, like up around the Linwood Pinconning area. And I told Scott Gatz, my fishing partner, I said, let's keep an eye on that. But in the meantime, let's run into some skinny water and make a couple of passes through there before the storm hits and see what's going on. And lo and behold, in my beloved skinny water, we got 2 fish first pass, and they were nice fish. But then that storm blew up and blew us off the water as well. You've got to respect, not fear, not in Michigan, I don't think. I don't think we have to fear Mother Nature. We were talking about this on our live show here in the studio before the broadcast began about, we can complain about weather here in Michigan. Yes, lack of rain, lack of snow, too much rain, too much snow, the wind blowing, too hot, too cold. But we don't have these massive forest fires. We don't have mudslides. We don't have hurricanes. We have very few tornadoes. We don't have earthquakes. I mean, we've really got it pretty good here in Michigan. But we can't control what we do have. And again, to me, that's part of the appeal. I am anxiously awaiting the results of the Michigan drawings from the DNR for our bear and elk tags. People keep asking me, hey, do you think you're going to get that bear tag? I'm still at 50-50. I think 50-50 on whether I'm going to get the bear tag, and I got a really bad feeling I'm going to get an elk tag because I went brain dead for a minute, and I put down an antlerless tag. I don't know why. But then I thought more about this. I was talking with my buddy Tony, who got a cow elk tag last year after applying for years and years of trying to get a bull tag. And he said, hey, where am I going to put a great big beautiful bull elk rack anyway? And he's right. I don't have room in my house. I got a lot of trophy mounts in my house, and there's really no more room for anything more, especially a big bull elk. So maybe I would be better off just filling the freezer with a bunch of venison. And yes, elk is venison. Elk is venison. Moose is venison. Deer is venison. They're all venison. Got some bad news this week. The Ontario border, the folks up there continue to drag their feet. Man, am I glad I live in this country. I've always been glad I live in this country. And I have some great friends up in Ontario, but I would not want to deal with that, what they have to deal with up there. Going to be a while before we get back in there. Breaking my heart. I feel so bad for these outfitters, these guides. They've lost 2 years of business now. I would suspect some of them will not recover. And I find myself now, too, my mind once in a while drifting off toward the fall and the hunting season. Now, I am not wishing away the summer fishing season at all. By the time it gets to be mid-August and hot and muggy, I might be, but not right now. I am enjoying the summertime, this early part of official summer. I am enjoying fishing tremendously, now that I seem to have gotten my mojo back, by the way. It took a while, and it is. So much of it is confidence. When I was fishing with Brad Dupuy of Angler Quest last week, he said, just be patient. It'll come back. And he was right. It did. It did. So I feel like I'm good to go now. Now I can leave the dock and feel comfortable and confident that I'm going to catch fish. And that's a good feeling once again. But I do find my thoughts drifting off to the fall hunting season. I think I have made the decision now. I think I'm officially checking the box in my brain. My old brain. I'm having a birthday this weekend as you're listening to the show, so I'm yet another year older. Checking the box that I am going to go to a crossbow this fall. I think that's what I want to do. Not I think. No, that's what I want to do. Do you hear that, Pat? Oh, okay. And I'm excited too. I want to try a new product from a Michigan company, Rec Broadheads. I want to use Michigan-based products whenever I can. And Matt Taggett there at Rec sent me some heads to give a try, and I'm really looking forward to those. Some fixed blades, some expandables. I think with a crossbow, I would feel comfortable using an expandable head. But now I just want the opportunity to put one of those through an animal, put one of those through a critter. I'll let you know how that goes. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine show, Captain Ed Retherford, one of the longest running charter captains in Michigan on the Great Lakes. He's out of Alpena. He'll be talking to us. Then Beth Gruden from the Michigan Wildlife Council will join us as well. In hour number 2, we're talking catfish with Captain Andy Brennan. I'm looking forward to that. That'll be an interesting conversation. Hannah Schauer from the DNR talks about their new podcast. This week's Ask Avery segment, details and questions on the DNR's drawing system for bear and elk. And in hour number 3, we'll talk with Tim Roller of Whitetail Journey about the summertime scouting and what else is going on in his world. And, of course, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar. That's all coming up this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Traverse City on WTCM. That's 580 AM. You can hear us in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. And in Ludington on News 97.98, 98.7 WLDN. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning has been a leader in the archery industry since 1946. So you know what that means? Do the math here. 1946 to 2021. This is their 75th anniversary. How cool is that? How impressive is that a Michigan-based company has been around long enough to be a pioneer in the archery industry? I mean, going back to the days of Fred Bear, right? Boning was right there working side by side with him. To these days, continues to come up with new designs, new product, innovate for target archers and bow hunters. I just talked to a guy the other day who was up there putting a state-of-the-art robotic system in the plant. So they're not slowing down. They're only getting better. I wish them nothing but success for another 75 years, by the way. If you want to help Boning celebrate this anniversary, head over to their website, boning.com, BOHNING.com, and see what they have in mind. Boning.com. Congrats on 75 years in the archery industry. 75 years is a long time. Ed Retherford has not been a captain for 75 years. But he's working that direction, and he joins us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Good morning, Cap. How are you?
Good, Mike. How you been?
Wonderful. Listen, how many years have you been out there on the water?
Well, I started guiding in 1969 on the Asabo for like 3 or 4 years, and then this is my 52nd year of guiding.
52nd years. That's a long time, Ed. And I got to believe that the equipment, the tactics, the techniques, and the fisheries have changed over that time too, right?
Oh, many times. If I was good at, my wife said if I was good in English, I could probably write a book, but I'm not going to do that. Okay, I'm a biologist, not an English person. So,
are you on the water right now, Ed?
No, I'm not. We've had terrible winds from. Nobody realizes on the Great Lakes we get hurricane effect from the winds from the hurricanes in the south. And the last 2 days, I had people from Ohio, and I just told them that, we'd take it off for 2 or 3 days to see what was going on. So,
see, I didn't realize that either. I mean, I knew we've had some squirrely weather lately, but I didn't make the connection that it's somehow tied into the things that happen down south.
well, probably the weatherman won't say that, but every time we see a hurricane come down through, Louisiana or Florida or that area, 3 or 4 days later, we really get heavy winds in the Great Lakes. So, I mean, I'm just putting that together. That's one of my own observations, I guess.
And you know what, Ed? After more than a half century on the water, I would consider your observations to be valid and certainly worthy of taking a look at. That's for sure.
Well, thanks.
So, listen, you are you still working out of Alpena?
Well, I am. I'm moving up to Presque Isle next week. I've sort of waited and seen what's going to happen with the pandemic and everything else, and then I've got some issues with an engine that it's a lot easier to take care of in Alpena. So, but if the winds die down, I'm on my way up there. But I've been using other boats. Is what I've been doing. The good news is with me being captain so long, I've had quite a few mates. I get ribbed about that a little bit, but so I've been, and now I think I've got 17 of my ex-mates that are captains now, so that I can use them. They yell at me now. I don't yell at them.
So let me ask you, do you look at it, or do they look at it as, okay, of those 17 guys who are now captains, you broke them in, or did you wear them out?
Well, both.
Yeah.
Some I did. Some were my own. Well, as you know, both my boys are captains, and my daughter's an avid fisherman now. She was all upset because, that was back when girls were girls. So I didn't allow. She fished on a boat a little bit, but I never took her as a mate, which I probably should have. But I didn't.
Well, and this is interesting. There are a few fishing families around the state like yours. Nobody's got the experience out there, I think, certainly in northern Lake Huron that you do. But the fact that this kind of runs in the family, how has the charter business changed over the years? There are a lot of captains in the state, but there aren't as many full-time captains. Can a person make a living in Michigan on fishing?
Well, I'm sure if they guide on the rivers and do ice fishing, I know there's 5 or 6 now, because I used to say that nobody could because of the weather aspect, especially in northern Lake Huron. Now, if I downgraded to a smaller boat, I used to have a small boat. If I downgraded to a small boat that was trailerable, then I could, do a lot of do the walleye fishing, on the Detroit River in the spring, and then move up to Saginaw Bay, and then move up, then move right up the coast. I don't do that, but I know a lot of the younger guys do that now.
Years ago, northern Lake Huron was known as a pretty good area for salmon. Then you had that terrible crash. What's the status up there now, Ed?
Well, right now, we talked about, you interview me every year, which I'm very grateful, but we talk about variety now. Of course, lake trout's always been the supplement, but in the last few years, they planted Atlantics, which they're still questionable out there. But what we are seeing right now is that every other year now they are putting coho in Lake Huron, which they had not done since the 70s, and they started, I think it was 2018, or I know it was 2018, where they put 50 to 100,000 in Alpena, and then 50 to 100,000 on the thumb, and then last year they planted them in the Osabo, and then they planted them somewhere else south in the thumb area. And we are actually seeing, not huge amounts, not really what I call a fishery where you go out and catch 5 to 10 coho, but it's early in the year. But those coho are actually showing up.
I didn't realize there was a coho stocking program going on up there. What's the thinking behind that? What niche does the coho fill that the DNR was thinking this would be a good fit?
Well, a number of things. Number one, they do eat bugs. Okay, they're not oriented like the kings are to alewives. They will eat other they will eat other fish, you know, in the different depth structures. So we have that available. And when they come into the streams, they actually bite when they start spawning, which also makes it a stream fishery. So the Lake Huron Advisory, which I'm part of, and, you know, there's numerous individuals on that, we talked that over to Great Lakes that they would not have any effect basically on the balance of the Great Lakes when they put them in, because they are bug eaters also.
More like a steelhead then.
Correct. Or like an Atlantic, although hopefully they move around in schools a lot better than Atlantics do, so you can, you know, pinpoint that. That's our hope. And I think, you know, normally now everything that the DNR does, which, you know, if I agree with or don't agree with, is on a 5-year plan. So, you know, if it doesn't happen after 5 or 6 years, then it's going to be gone again.
Let's talk more about those Atlantics. There was high hope for that program. Is it too early to say how it's going?
Well, I would say they better make a decision pretty quick, because I've devoted, well, we're not going to get into the brown trout, but I've devoted quite a bit to the Atlantics, and what I'm seeing is that they are salmon, and you can't really pinpoint them day after day after day. That's the hard part. Okay, and I know up at Drummond in the Straits, they do have a great fishery there. We generally have a fishery here in the early spring, and then up near Presque Isle to Rogers City, it'll be in the last 2 weeks. It's the first 2 weeks of June usually that they show up to where they're in a catch every day. And then they're gone, and then they're back probably like in the end of July, the first part of August. But they're not to where I can actually say, have customers come and book them and say, we're going to go out and catch an Atlantic.
If the average weekend warrior caught an Atlantic, would they know that's what it is, or would they think it was a king or something else?
Well, they would think, they would probably, they've done all sorts of advertising, and they're trying to, they've actually got a Facebook page, an Atlantic Facebook page, so if you get an Atlantic, you can send a photo in, and they'll let you know. The only problem with that, I just hope they're not double counting the Atlantics with the fish catches at the docks, because they do have interviews at the docks also. But it's quite hard. I mean, I've even had, even my, I don't want to say they can't identify them, but even my son just caught one last week in Lake Michigan down in Grand Haven, and he was looking about, the X's and all this kind of stuff on them, and I told him, well, send me a photo and I can tell you right away, and it was an Atlantic.
I didn't realize that you had folks over on Lake Michigan.
Well, I got Phillips at Grand Haven.
Oh, he is? Okay.
Yeah, he's been there, catch a bunch. He's been there for a long time, and then my son Paul, he's in Petoskey. But he's got his license in escrow right now because he was moving around and everything, and he was actually fishing on other boats.
Well, between you three, you've got the Great Lakes pretty much covered. Yeah,
and Paul, I mean, everybody talks about 20 years. Paul started when he was 19. He was a captain when he was 19, and he's 46 now. So. He's well over 25 years as a captain already. So
look what you've created, Ed. Look what you've created.
Yeah. Yep. My wife's not real happy.
Hey.
She goes. We've been married for 51 years, and I know you're going to interrupt me, but we've been married for 51 years, and she goes, I didn't realize when I married you fished this much or hunted or whatever, because we hunt. We're big-time hunters, too. So
hang tight, Ed. I'm only interrupting because the clock says I have to, but we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Captain Ed Retherford of Trout Scout Charters, the website troutscoutcharters.com. That's troutscoutcharters.com. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK. That's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC, AM and FM, 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux on ESPN 1400 WKNW. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Rapid River Knives. You've got a knife. You use a knife. You might even carry a knife. I got a knife in my pocket right now, and most of us do. How many times a day do you reach for that knife from mundane things like opening envelopes or opening packages to, when you would actually think you'd need a knife, like cutting food or whittling or whatever? Why not have that knife be a Michigan-made, handmade, maybe even custom-made knife from Rapid River Knife Works? The website, rapidriverknifeworks.us, rapidriverknifeworks.us. Go to that website, check out their showroom. It is phenomenal. It's beautiful. It's very impressive. And we will do a Wednesday Night Live up there sometime in the next couple of months. I'm looking forward to that. rapidriverknifeworks.us. Check them out. While you are online, I would ask you to check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and then head on over to TroutScoutCharters.com. TroutScoutCharters.com is the website for Captain Ed Retherford. He's been a charter captain in Northern Lake Huron for 52 years, and he's still out there and going strong. Ed, congrats on your career. Congrats on your success.
Thanks, Mike.
Hey, listen, in the first segment, you said you really didn't want to get into the whole topic of brown trout and talk about that. And I'm not going to ask you or force you to talk about something you're uncomfortable with, but I am curious about why you don't want to go down that road.
Well, the DNR is adamant about planting the Atlantics right now, and that was the agreement on the Lake Huron Advisory. They took a vote and voted that they had done a survey and a 5-year test on brown trout in Thunder Bay, and there was not the catch rate that they wanted, but there was some issues. Me being right here was that I had with them, but it didn't. It sort of fell on deaf ears, and there was a total agreement, except for my vote, that they would stop planting brown trout in Lake Huron. And then there was the big push for Atlantics, because they were actually, their habitat and their movement is a lot like brown trout, but the trouble is they're salmon, and they have, biologically they have big tails, so that doesn't make a lot of sense until you think about it. But they move a lot. They're not necessarily reef oriented or oriented to types of areas that the browns were. So.
And you said too that your lake trout fishery is strong. That's strong across the Great Lakes. Isn't it nice to have that fish out there as a backup, as a consistent day-to-day fish? But my question is, are you seeing there on Northern Lake Huron what they're seeing across the rest of the lakes, in that the fish are eating something different and the meat is now different than what I was used to 10, 15, 20 years ago?
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't want to say that I'm probably one of the first ones that brought that up, and I don't want to sound conceited that way, but they actually, this is sort of a standard joke, is that the neighbors always want salmon, and occasionally I still fun fish a lot, which a lot of captains don't. And what I'll do is, a lot of the lake trout, if they're feeding on gobies, will be a bright orange or bright red. And the meat's not oily at all, because the strain they're planting now does not have that oil, and also the natural reproduced fish do not have the oily, like they used to call them greasers or fatties. And I give that meat to them, and they don't know the difference between them or salmon. So that's sort of a standard joke among us.
Well, I think it's funny that, years ago, greasers, slime balls, I don't want those fish. And then when the salmon fishery crashed, people were darn glad to have those lake trout out there, weren't they?
Well, they've been our bread and butter, and like we've always said, going back, that's where I started, was in Betoski wire pumping and Charlevoix, again. And when I got out of the first year I got out of college in 1969, I was going over there, and I still pump wire every now and then just to show how you do it and that kind of stuff. But anyways, yeah, that's what basically is going on. And the gobies, if you could badmouth them, they are invasive, and but they have saved our fishery that way.
Well, Ed, it is always a pleasure to talk with you. I'll wish you luck on the water, luck on getting that other motor fixed on the boat, and good fishing to you, my friend.
Yeah, you too, Mike, and hopefully we can get back to where I'll see you at one of the shows or wherever. I'll stop in and say hi to you. I see that you look like you've lost quite a bit of weight, so we'll give you a good compliment.
I'm looking like a different guy, feeling like a different guy, Ed, and I'll look forward to having those shows open up and we can talk again in person.
Give one shot. I know you. I was too, and then my wife told me the other day I looked like I gained some weight, so I had to weigh, and I gained 6 pounds, so I got to get back on it again.
Oh, come on! You can't see 6 pounds. It's impossible to see 6 pounds. I think. I hope. Captain Ed Retherford of Trout Scout Charters, his website, troutscoutcharters.com. That's troutscoutcharters.com. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, Beth Gruden from the Michigan Wildlife Council with an update on their Here for Generations campaign. Then we'll kick off hour number 2 talking about catfish with Andy Brennan. Hannah Schauer from the DNR joins us. And then we'll talk about the draw system for bear and elk here in Michigan in hour 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Tawas on WIOS, AM and FM, 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. You can hear us in Port Huron at WPHM, 1380 AM, and on the west side of the state in Muskegon on WKBZ, 1090 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Speedy Blaze. Speedy Blaze is a safe, clean, water-resistant, insect-resistant alternative to firewood. It is the perfect material to burn in your grill, your fire pit, your fireplace, the backyard fire ring. Throw it in your camper, throw it in your trailer, throw it in your truck. It's absolutely perfect. You can take it anywhere. You don't have to worry about transporting insects or disease. And they're a Michigan-based family-owned company, and you know I love that. Burns clean, burns hot, burns down to ash, easy to start. There's no downside. Check them out online at speedyblaze.com. That's speedyblaze.com. And check out their new grilling pellets as well. A great way to smoke fish, meat, cheese even. Details at the website speedyblaze.com. Speedyblaze.com. I want to turn our attention now to a group I've been working with since for many years, since they got started, because I am concerned about the future of our outdoor heritage. It's something I preach about, something I talk about, something I believe in strongly. And every week here on the show, I grew up in an outdoor family. The outdoor lifestyle is part of who I am. It may be part of who you are. And even if you choose not to be a part of this history or heritage, we want you to be accepting of it and to realize that there are people out there who are conserving and promoting wildlife and conservation, and that's what the Michigan Wildlife Council is all about. Beth Gruden is a member of that council, and she just happens to be an avid upland hunter as well, and she's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Beth, welcome back. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Always a pleasure. Listen, I know we're just getting started in the summer, but do you feel yourself maybe thinking about that fall hunting season already once in a while?
Oh, yeah. We're knee-deep in training for hunt tests and getting ready for hunting season. And I'm looking forward to July 8th when we can get back in the woods and start doing a little scouting.
July 8th. Early July is a big time here because you can get back in the woods. We'll find out about the bear and elk tags, so I am excited as well. But let's talk about the Michigan Wildlife Council and how this Here for Generations campaign is going. Are you making an impact? Do you feel like you're doing some good?
Yeah, we feel like we're moving the needle. We actually partnered with a new response management company, which actually specializes more in conservative and natural resource space for their surveying. And they found that our approvals steady right around 80%, which is an increase over past years. And we've also found that more people are understanding that our funding for conservation activities is coming from hunting and fishing. That has moved up to 74%, which when we started this campaign, only 60% of people understood that that's where that funding came from.
I'd say you're doing more than moving the needle then. I mean, you're making an impact.
We certainly hope so.
Why? Listen, maybe it's obvious to you or me or somebody else listening about why it's important to get this message out. But there are going to be a lot of people hearing you saying, well, why does it really matter? Why does it matter what people think of hunting and fishing here in Michigan?
It's important for people to understand that the hunting and fishing culture and heritage actually funds things that they may enjoy. For instance, boat launches, state parks, trails, other items that they may use even if they don't hunt or fish.
Exactly. Bird watchers, hikers, boaters, campers who may not be avid hunters or anglers in a large part benefit from what we do.
Exactly.
Beth, do you see this campaign? Do you have it mapped out for the next little while? Do you have any changes coming up? Are you going to change the geographic or the message or the target group at all? Or are you pretty happy with where you've got it right now?
So our campaign's going to maintain in our heavily urban areas because they're less connected to hunting and fishing. So it'll primarily be Detroit and Grand Rapids, which has been our target the last few years. And we're going to continue to expand on exactly how conservation is funded and what other things that we fund with our hunting and fishing dollars.
I know you're targeting the non-hunters, but I do think it's important that every once in a while you guys get on here and tell the hunting and fishing audience what you're doing and why. So, Beth Gruden, I appreciate your time. Appreciate the hard work on the Michigan Wildlife Council. And good luck in the woods this fall. I know it's a ways off, but we're starting to think that direction. So good luck to you, Beth.
Thank you so much.
Beth Gruden of the Michigan Wildlife Council, the website here for MIOutdoors.org, here for MIOutdoors.org, the Michigan Wildlife Council, and their Here for Generations campaign, a group that I strongly support. I think they're doing a great job. We will take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, we're going to talk about catfishing with Andy Brennan, then Hannah Schauer from the DNR, their new, not new, but their podcast, this latest one, talking about leaving baby animals alone. That's something I talk about a lot. And then this week's Ask Avery segment, how does the Michigan bear and elk drawing work?
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by J Sporting Goods, the Yiter Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. So glad to have you along with us as we continue this 3-hour weekly celebration of the outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan, and occasionally beyond. This is a radio show. First and foremost, it is recorded, scheduled, distributed, produced as a radio show. And I have to say that these days because the line between broadcast and podcast has been blurred tremendously. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But, there aren't many at all statewide syndicated outdoor radio shows here in Michigan, but there are a ton of outdoor-related podcasts. I think podcasting is a great thing. I really do. I embrace podcasting myself. But I do believe the best way to listen to Outdoor Magazine Radio, if you can, is on your local AM or FM station, because there you'll get your local news and weather and sports, even your local commercials. Maybe there's a sale you want to take advantage of. And the broadcast stations get the content of the show before I upload the podcast version of. But if for some reason you can't hear all 3 hours of the show, or if you live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal, the broadcast footprint, you can always hear the podcast version of the show. I put it on the website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I put it on the Mike Avery Outdoors Facebook page. It's on Amazon Music, Audible, Twitter, LinkedIn, iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Player FM, Deezer, Radio.com, and I even put it on YouTube. So wherever you get your podcasts from, you can hear the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine show. Speaking of podcasts, I also produce monthly podcasts for Jay's Sporting Goods, Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest Boats, Killer Food Plots, Polar Craft Boats, and Shadow Hunter Blinds. And today, when we're done with the radio show, we will record another edition of the Angler Quest podcast and the Polar Craft podcast as well. So keep an eye/ear out for those. But anyway, I'm so glad to have you along with us. I try each week to find topics that will be of interest to as big a group as I can. Timely topics, interesting topics. And I like to reach out into new areas because I don't want to get in a rut. And it's easy to. And I've had people say this, Avery, sometimes I feel like you end up, talking about the things that you like to do. And that's, I admit to that. I do admit that. One thing I don't do, but I find fascinating, is fishing for catfish. Now, in some parts of the country, catfishing is a big, big deal. Here in Michigan and the North Country and the Great Lakes, it's not as big a deal, but there are a lot of people who do it, including Andy Brennan. Andy is a catfish aficionado. You can find him on Facebook as Catfish Andy's Guide Service, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Andy, welcome back to the show. How have you been?
Good morning, Mike. I've been really good. Thanks for having me. Always
a pleasure. How has the fishing been?
I'll say this, where I live down in the Maumee, it's been lights out. The weather was a minor hitch with going back and forth from cold to warm, but everything I've been seeing on Facebook and in my own experience has been really good. I fished the Saginaw a couple times up in Bay City. Excuse me. It was kind of tough because the cold front had rolled through. I caught a fish that's probably about 14 pounds of flathead and plenty of channel cats. And I'm just waiting to get out there again. So I'm looking forward to getting out there sometime, maybe this next week in Bay City.
Well, and so you're concentrating primarily on guiding on the Maumee, but you did cut your teeth on catfishing here in Michigan, didn't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I caught a lot of channel cats over the years, and I wasn't aware of the fact that there were flatheads in that river up until a couple of years ago. And flatheads are the apple of my eye. You can ask anyone who knows me, even a little, very well, and they'll tell you, don't get them started on flatheads because you will not shut up. So,
well, you know what? I'm going to take the big leap here. I don't know enough about catfish to know the difference between the different species or types. Help me out, Andy.
Well, the two species we have here in Michigan, flatheads and channel cats, there are a lot of differences. Flatheads, they have an underbite. They'll only fish in North America where their bottom jaw sticks out like that. They have a square tail. They're really meant not for fighting current. They like to they feed and then they go and rest for hours at a time. Whereas channel cats, they're kind of like a torpedo shape. They got a forked tail. They have an overbite. Their bottom jaw sticks over. And they, from a fishing standpoint, channel cats are somewhat easier to catch. You can catch them day or night. They like a lot of stuff, prepared baits, cut bait, even night crawlers and stuff like that. Whereas the flatheads, most times out of the year, you're going to want to use some kind of live bait. They're highly predatory. And cut shad and cut bait will work sometimes. But getting into the part of the summer where they're really active, you're going to probably want to throw something live out there for them.
I always used to think of catfish kind of in the category of and forgive me, Andy, but carp and what some people would commonly call trash fish. And that's not the case at all, is it?
Not at all. They're a magnificent sport fish. You know, they're gaining a lot of popularity. There's companies out there making rods geared solely for catfish, all kinds of gear. Seems like every year there's another company or, you know, more people into it pursuing them. And I have utmost respect for catfish. I'll defend their value for as long as I have to. And but it is true. A lot of places have been slow to recognize them as the good sport fish that they are, and they are lumped in the, say, forage or trash fish, you know, in some places. So we're working to change it, though.
And you're working hard to change that, and you're doing a good job. So what's the appeal of catfish? Is it the eating? Is it the fight? Is it the challenge? What do you like about catfish?
What I say about flatheads is they grow big, they fight hard, and they taste good. That's what it all comes down to. And you know, they're maybe, what I want to say, the third or fourth largest freshwater fish in North America. The world record was caught in Kansas in 1998. It was 123 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, there was an all-tackle record caught in Arkansas. I think it was in the early 80s. These two guys down there were using what's called the snag line, which it's not legal here in Michigan, but it's kind of like a trot line where you have your main line going out with little dropper lines, and they would put treble hooks on it. And the idea was that the fish would swim into one of the hooks and get caught up and then kind of roll around and get itself hooked in more. And for the record, that's the all-tackle record right there. I think it was 138 or 139 pounds. But I suspect they get bigger in places. They're just difficult to catch.
I can't even imagine a fish that size. What are we going to see commonly? What's a big fish here in Michigan, a big catfish?
A big one? In the 40s and maybe in the 50s. I would say, I mean, you have some real fertile waters. The Saginaw River, you got the St. Joe down the west side of the state, the Kalamazoo, you got the Grand River. Those all hold good fish. I would say up in these parts, a 40 or a 50 would be a very good fish. That
is a tremendous fish. I mean, you get a fish that size on the end of your line, you're not trolling, or are you?
That's a crazy thing, Mike, is that I ran into a guy down here on the Maumee who, what he does to catch them, he goes out in his boat and he trolls that night real slowly with Hottentots. He goes real slow, and he gets in to scad the fish while he's out there. He knows where to go and when to go there, but all he does is troll crankbaits behind his boat real slow, and he gets a lot of flatheads that way. So people are drifting for them. They're employing some different techniques now that are relatively new to the catfishing front. I still like to get set up on shore or in a boat, cast my lines out, wait for them. So I'm kind of old-fashioned with that, but there's a lot of different methods that are used to catch them. It's kind of interesting.
So do you anchor up in holes or runs, or tell me more, Andy?
I'm looking for a current break, Mike. Like that's your best bet, is to find them in a current break, especially if there's some depth there, like say on the outside of a river bend with some cover. That's an ideal place to go look for them, because that night they're going to come out to feed. And if you're kind of in that vicinity of where they are, a lot of times you can, you get a bite or two. So it's not terribly complicated. It's nice to know the river and where you're fishing. It makes things a lot easier. But I'm pretty simple with my approach right now. But anchoring or the bridge abutments around the Saginaw River are really good places to fish. I've caught a lot of nice ones in that kind of cover. So that's what I look for.
We're talking with Andy Brennan, Catfish Andy Brennan, about catfishing here in Michigan. An underutilized, underexploited sport for sure. We got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show, but when we come back, I want to I want to explore this a little bit more. I'm fascinated by this. The topic of being able to catch a 40-pound fish. I mean, come on. A 40-pound fish, I don't care what kind of fish it is going to put up a heck of a fight, and catfish are known as great fighters. So you can learn more about Andy, by the way, on Facebook, a couple of different Facebook pages. Catfish Andy's Guide Service is one of them, and Maumee River Flatheads is another. But we'll take a break and continue our conversation with Catfish Andy Brennan, right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Caro on two stations, WKYO, that's 1360 AM, and also WIDL, that's 92.1 FM. And you can hear us in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, again, AM and FM, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground program. OTG is a program to improve the habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website. That's MUCC.org, MUCC.org. And if you would like to save 25% on your MUCC membership, either your first time signing up or your renewal, you can use the promo code Mike, all caps, MIKE, and save 25% on your membership. And that's what I did. I used my promo code to re-up my membership, and I saved 25%. Again, MUCC.org is the website for that. While you're online, on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and I would ask you to head on over to a couple of Facebook pages. One of them, Catfish Andy's Guide Service, and the other one, Maumee River Flatheads. Both of those are pages for my guest right now, Andy Brennan, Catfish Andy Brennan. He's a hardcore catfisherman. Andy, you talked about some of the rivers here in the lower part, in lower Michigan. But I noticed you didn't mention like the St. Clair or Detroit rivers. Are those just too fast? Are you looking for a slower current for catfish?
Not necessarily. The apple of my eye are flatheads, and to my knowledge, there isn't really a population of flatheads in those rivers. So I would go there if it would. It's not that far from where I live down here, but I don't know of a really active population of flatheads in those rivers. One of my friends is taking the sturgeon fishing up there, and they fish night crawlers, and he catches a lot of channel cats doing that on the St. Clair River and Detroit River. But as of now, no flatheads have turned up, so that's why I don't really put a whole lot of energy into fishing those rivers.
So channel cats are more common, more prevalent than the flatheads?
Absolutely. They're more widespread than blues or flatheads here in North America.
Now, you mentioned blue. Now, that's something we haven't talked about. Do we have those blues in Michigan?
No, sir, we don't. It's getting to southern Ohio and places like that in the Ohio River, those are some of the nearest bodies of water that will have blue cats. People catch what they think are blue cats up here, but they're typically male channel catfish. They have a slate gray or blue color. And a lot of people think they've caught a blue cat, but they're not native to Michigan.
It gets people all excited. We got blue cats in Michigan, and Catfish Andy comes along and says, no, that's not a blue cat.
I hate to burst your bubble, but it happens. It happens.
So what got you started? I mean, what made you think, hey, I'm going to go out and target catfish?
It's funny. I used to watch fishing shows all the time growing up, before I could drive and go out on my own. And I just remember watching In Fisherman. This is back, say, in the late 80s, early 90s. And they would do these clips on these enormous catfish they were catching down south. And I saw Bill Dance do it, too. And I just thought, I don't know, it just flipped the switch, lit a spark in me. And I've been fascinated with them ever since. So it's funny because my mom was going through some old papers at our house, and she found a story I had written for school just for fun. and I probably was in third grade, and it was all about flathead catfish. It was a fictitious story about, it was a fictitious story about my cousins and my brother and I fishing. I didn't realize it went that far back, but evidently I've been exposed to it back then. So this is something that goes, I go way back with this whole fascination, this love of catfish.
You were destined to be a catfisherman, Andy.
It's funny, I have a son, his name is Sean, he's 11, and people always ask, oh, does he like to fish? And I just tell him he didn't have a choice. So he's getting the hang of it, too. He caught his first flathead last year, and he was a little timid about holding him, but he's got the feel for it now, so we have a lot of fun with it.
Well, listen, you bring up holding him. I've got to ask you a stupid question, and I apologize. I've always heard be careful on catfish because of the spines at the end of the fins. Is that legit?
Yeah, the dorsal fin and the pectoral fins have spines in them. Flatheads don't, though. They're the one species of catfish that don't have those. So you wouldn't get a poke from them like you would like with a bullhead or a channel cat. They don't have the pointy spines in them like the other species do.
And is there anything, is there any danger in that spine? Other, listen, we get poked by walleye fins all the time. It's just the same thing as that?
As far as I know, yeah, I've been poked a bazillion times in my life, handling them or using them for bait.
Okay.
Bullheads are especially tough. Yeah, holding them and whatnot. It's easy to get a poke. I have heard that they have spines in the corner of their mouths that supposedly have poison in them. Don't quote me on that, but that was just a rumor I had heard. I have not come down with anything as a result of being poked by a channel or a bullhead.
If anybody's going to get something from it, it'd be you, Andy, because you've handled a ton of them. So I'm going to assume it's not a problem at all.
Yeah, it's just a little hazard of the job here, but it's all worth it.
All right, so if somebody listening to this says, you know what, I like what Andy's saying. I'm interested in these fish. How would we get started? Is this a fish you can target from the bank, from shore, or do you have to have a boat?
No, they're perfectly accessible from shore, too. That's where I do a lot of my fishing, depending on where I am. There's, it's not hard to find spots. Just in the last couple of years when I was clued into the flatheads on the Saginaw River, I'm firmly convinced if you find a relatively good shore spot, if you time it right and have the right bait, you'll get bit. Like the flatheads are there. They're all throughout that river system. I mean, guys catch them in the bay. So most of the time, if you're limited to just being on shore, there's a lot of places you can set up and have a good shot at catching some flatheads. So
what would you help? Remind me here. Just throw out a gob of something and put it in a rod holder and wait? Well,
if you want to catch channel cats, yeah. But if you're going after flatheads, especially in the summertime, you're going to want to use live bait like bluegills or bullheads. Chubs and suckers are good, too. Like in Ohio, where I fish a lot, we can use goldfish and carp and koi for bait. And those, for me, those are the best live bait there is. They stay alive forever on the hook. And you want something that's active and moving around because the flatheads can detect the movement of a struggling fish. And so if you got a bait fish out there that's real lively and active, that's going to ring the dinner bell for them.
So it sounds like one of these fish is feeding based on motion, and the other one's feeding based on smell.
Yeah, they call channel catfish a swimming tongue. Their whole body is covered with taste buds. That's why I like using liver or cheese or dough bait, something stinky like that. You're going to get a lot of channel cats mostly. I've heard of people catching small blues with prepared baits like that. I have a friend who guides out in Kansas, calls himself Cat Daddy, and he's kind of one of my mentors, and he makes all kinds of chum and dip baits and stuff. It's really interesting, but most of the time he's going to get channel cats and small blue cats with that, not flatheads.
All right, so remind me. I think you brought that up, but remind me on this. Are you going to fish for channel cats and flatheads in a different part of the river, or will you find them in the same run or same hole?
Yeah, they'll be all mixed together. It's not uncommon to catch some of both in a night.
And is it primarily a nighttime fishery?
For flatheads, yeah, they're almost strictly nocturnal. Channel cats, you can catch them in the day without any issues, but your best bet for flatheads is to get out there around dusk or a little bit before and get set up. And it's interesting because when it gets dark and night sets in, it's almost like they flip a switch. all of a sudden you start getting runs and bites from flatheads.
So you could be sitting out there in the same spot 2 hours before the sun sets. Nothing happens, and you're thinking there's not a catfish in this river. It gets dark, and they turn on.
It's something that they say, and I agree that if you find some kind of cover with blocking the current, if it's during the day, if you put say a bait fish right in their face, a lot of times they'll snap at it, out of frustration or maybe out of hunger. If you find some kind of heavy cover and there's fish holed up in there, if you put it right in their face, they're likely to snap at it. But that can be hard to find, especially if you're just on shore. So I don't know, just finding some kind of cover or ledge, something with some depth is good. It happens that you can catch them in the day, but I don't focus too much energy on catching flatheads during the day.
Well, and I know one of your goals is to promote catfishing in general, but do you also run trips? Do you take people out and show them how to do this and catch them fish?
I do. It's interesting. I had some football players from the University of Toledo a couple years ago that I ran into at my old job, and I had some brochures to my guide service, and we went out a few days later, and they were just hooked. We only got a little flathead one night, but they came out with me the next weekend. We got a 34-pound flathead, and these kids, it was funny because before they would start their 2-a-day practices every summer, I'd hear from them they want to go out fish for flathead. Long story short, we fished for a couple of years, and it was a few summers ago I hadn't heard from them. All of a sudden, in the middle of the night, I got this text from one of those kids. He lived in central Illinois, and he was holding a flathead, and it was all kind of how I taught him how to do it. I kind of let it spark it. I tell you what, Mike, that was the biggest paycheck I ever got from guiding. Like, to see people take to it like that on their own, that means the world to me. So I like, if I'm out there, we're not just waiting for a bite. I like to explain what's going on. I like to tell them, hey, this is the gear we're using. This is the nature of the fish. Here's the bait. Here's how you want to hook with a circle hook, whatever. I need to educate them, so if it's something they want to do without me, they'll know what to do.
Andy, you are the biggest proponent and the best promoter of catfishing that I know, and I always look forward to our conversations. Keep up the good work and good fishing to you.
Thanks, Mike. Just let me know when you want to go out. You're always welcome.
I'm the thought of hooking into a 30-pound fish. I don't care what species it is. The thought of hooking into a 30-pound fish in a river with a current, that is pretty appealing.
It is something. You might just get hooked yourself. You never know.
I just might. Andy Brennan, always a pleasure. Catfish Andy, we call him. You can learn more on a couple of Facebook pages. Catfish Andy's Guide Service on Facebook, and also Maumee River Flatheads as well. Think of this. Think of the times that you've been, I don't know, standing on the bank of a river or motoring up and down a river looking for something else. Walleye, steelhead, whatever, depending on what river you're, and you're passing over all these giant catfish that you could be taking advantage of and having fun with. I think it's a pretty cool topic. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, I'm going to talk with Hannah Schauer of the DNR about their Wild Talk podcast, this most recent one. A reminder, don't pick up baby animals. More on that after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Flint on Sports Extra, WTRX 1330, and you can hear us in Houghton Lake on two stations, the Twister 92.1 WTWS and 98.5 WUPS. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan tracker and Angler Quest headquarters. You know I love that. For more info, check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. Listen, while you're online, I've got another website for you. michigan.gov/DNR Wild Talk. Wild Talk is a podcast put out there by the Wildlife Division of the Michigan DNR, and I got to tell you, they do a great job. Hannah Schauer is one of the people behind the DNR Wild Talk podcast, and she's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Hannah, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing well, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Well, listen, I got to tell you, I am really impressed with the job you guys are doing on this Wild Talk podcast. Tell me more about that first.
Well, thanks. So our Wild Talk podcast, we talk about all kinds of different wildlife topics, including kind of wildlife habitat, that's work's going on around the state, other management activities. We also like to feature a species and talk a little bit about some of those life history or fun facts. And I guess anything wildlife we will talk about and cover on the show. So we've got a lot of great interviews each month, so folks should definitely check it out.
That's what I was going to ask. So it's a monthly podcast?
Yes, it comes out the first of every month.
And this month, you hit on a topic that I find very interesting, and I think a lot of people maybe misunderstand the importance of it. What are you guys talking about this time around?
Yeah, so our June episode, we titled it Plan A, Leave Wildlife Be, because it's important for folks to know just to leave wildlife alone. So we have some great interview guests, a whole panel of experts who came on and talked to us a little bit about why taking a wild animal from the wild and keeping it, even if you're trying to help it or just keeping it illegally as a pet, can be detrimental to the animal, the person who's in possession of it, as well as other people like family members, friends, or pets that might come in contact with that animal.
I think this is such a valid topic because people who do this aren't trying to do something wrong. They're trying to do something that they think is right. They're trying to help out these critters, these wildlife. In the end, they're not, but maybe first and foremost, they need to realize what they're doing is technically illegal as well.
Right. Yeah. If you're not a licensed wildlife rehabilitator, you technically cannot be in possession of those wild animals. And the other important thing besides legalities is just because an animal appears healthy, like if you find a baby animal, it appears healthy, that doesn't mean it isn't a carrier of a virus or a parasite that could infect people or pets.
I hadn't even thought of that one, Hannah.
Safety.
I hadn't even thought of that one.
It's really for your safety.
And you know, when you see a fawn, we'll use fawns as an example because I think that's probably one of the more common things. When you see a fawn out by himself, and this time of the year you're not going to see it so much, but a couple of weeks ago certainly, it's not. Odds are it's not abandoned. The mother, the doe, is around somewhere, and even if it is abandoned, what good are you doing that critter by bringing it into a household or a farm when it should be a wild animal anyway?
Absolutely, yeah. And fawns are a great example because it's not unusual to come across them while they're by themselves and think that, oh my gosh, this fawn's all alone, it must be abandoned. But that's never, very rarely the case because it's a survival strategy. The mom will hide that baby and then go elsewhere so as not to attract attention to where she's hidden it. And the camouflage and the fawn's hiding spot help protect it from predators. And so it's really in the animal's best interest to be left in the wild because that is where it's going to have the best chance of survival.
Hannah, I know you encourage involvement from your listeners on the DNR Wild Talk podcast. If somebody has an idea for a topic or if they have a question or a comment for you guys, how do they get involved in this? How do they become part of this whole concept?
Absolutely. We love to hear from our listeners. And so if anyone has ideas for topics or questions, they can email us at dnr-wildlife@michigan.gov.
dnr-wildlife@michigan.gov.
Mm-hmm.
That'll put you in touch with Hannah Schauer and the DNR Wild Talk podcast. Hannah, again, you guys do a great job, and I appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk with me this week here on the Outdoor Magazine radio show.
Well, thanks for having me on, Mike.
Always a pleasure. The website, michigan.gov/DNR Wild Talk. This time around, talking about leaving baby animals alone. Isn't that something I've talked about here on the Outdoor Magazine radio show before as well? Seems to be a common theme here. Don't pick them up. Leave them alone. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we want to take a look at how the Michigan bear tags are drawn and the Michigan elk tags are drawn. Coming up here July 6th, we will find out if we've got those tags or not. But we'll talk with Lisa Jackson on this week's Ask Avery segment. And then coming up after the break, we'll talk with Tim Roller of Whitetail Journey and Dave Minar in hour 3 of this week's show. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name is Mike Avery. You can hear the show on AM and FM radio stations across the state, including WILS in Lansing, that's 1320 AM, and WMLQ in Manistee, 97.7 FM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. And what this is a chance for you to get involved in the content of the show. You can send me a question. The best way to do it, I think, is email mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. But you can hit me up on just about any of the social media platforms as well. And send me your questions. Sometimes these questions are directly to me, and sometimes they are questions you would like me to pass on to somebody else. And that's what we have this week. John Golson sent me an email, again, to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. He says, "Hi, Mike, I have a question for your Ask Avery segment." Well, how appropriate. He says, "How do the DNR's drawings work?" He said, "I've applied for an elk tag every year for about 25 years with no luck, and then I see folks getting a tag the first time they try. How can that be? It doesn't seem fair." And then he follows up. He says, "Also, I'd like to try bear hunting in Michigan, but I know that will take a long time to get a tag. Is there a way to speed up that process? And finally, when they talk about weighted drawings, what does this mean?" Well, I don't know the answers to these, but I know who to ask. Her name is Lisa Jackson, and she's with the DNR, and she's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Lisa, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's nice to talk with you again. You heard the questions there from John. So let's go through them one by one. He's applied for an elk tag every year for 25 years with no luck, and then somebody else applies and gets one the first time. How can that be? How does the system work?
It actually kind of goes to his last question about the weighted drawing. The elk drawing is a weighted drawing, and what that means is each year that you apply and you're not selected for a license, you earn a chance for future drawings. So that drawing, you don't have a guaranteed chance of success really ever in your lifetime. And this is largely because we have so many people trying to apply for just this year, 260 tags. So we had about 42,000 people looking for a license and only 260 tags. So because of those numbers, we have a weighted drawing where everyone has some chance of success, and those who apply consistently have a better chance, but still no guarantee of being selected. So that's what's going on with John.
So does the same system then carry over to bear tags? Is that done the same way?
It's not. Actually, we have a preference point system over there, and just like elk, people who apply and are not selected earn a point for future drawings. But in that system, because the numbers are a little more, we have more tags available. Basically, we have a preference system where people with the most points in each hunt period are selected first. So you should be selected for a license eventually once you have enough points. And point requirements vary a lot between hunt periods. So, for example, if we look at, let's say, Newberry, the Newberry Bear Management Unit, the point requirements for a first period hunt were 8 or 9 this year. Second period, 4 or 5 points were required, and for third period, we had people with no points that were picked. Some were selected.
Woohoo! Because you picked the area that I'm applying for, Lisa.
So it really depends on the area that you want and the supply and demand for tags in that area. That's what's really going to drive how long it will take to get a bear tag. So it's a little different than elk, where it's just like the number of slips of paper that you have in the hat to be selected.
And when John says, is there a way to, he put in quotes, speed up the process? Yes, if you apply for the second or third hunt in an area and apply for an area that doesn't have the demand that, say, a Drummond Island or a Red Oak would, yeah, you can help try to speed up the process a little bit. But there's no guarantee on either an elk or a bear tag, is there?
Well, the preference point system for some areas, I can't speak for Drummond necessarily because that's a little tougher. We only have 6 tags there this year for that. But for other areas, if you have enough points, you're going to be selected ahead of people who have fewer points. So there is a little bit more of a guarantee for most of the hunt periods for bear in getting a tag.
And one thing we haven't talked about, we've also got this wild card out there called the Pure Michigan Hunt, which I know isn't directly involved in your drawings, but that is another way to get a tag. And I think in some ways the odds might be a little better with that.
Well, you're always eligible. You're never ineligible. So the elk drawing, for example, has some ineligibility periods. You can always apply, if you're a resident, that is, for the Pure Michigan Hunt. And actually, I do manage that hunt as well, or that drawing.
You do? Okay.
All the drawings. Mm-hmm.
And you can apply multiple times for the Pure Michigan Hunt, so that's an advantage too.
You could speed up your chances by buying a lot of applications. You sure could.
And Lisa, we find out, remind me, I think it's July 6th we find out about these results for the bear and elk tags?
That is correct.
Okay, listen, do me a little favor. Look into your computer right now and see if the name Mike Avery is in there anywhere and tell me. I won't tell anybody, but just give me a little heads up, will you?
Oh, gosh, I'm not at my computer right at the moment. I'm so sorry.
So sorry. I'd like to help you out, Avery, but I just can't.
Can't right now, no.
All right, Lisa, I appreciate your insight and your input, and I'll just be patient like everybody else. All right, so thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that. Thank you, John, for asking that question. And, of course, thank you to the folks at Security Credit Union for helping to make each week's Ask Avery segment possible. Couldn't do it without you. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, Tim Roller of Whitetail Journey and wild game chef Dave Minar here on Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by J Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter. Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network. So glad to have you along with us. I truly mean that. You know, sometimes those words come out of my mouth automatically without me thinking about it. But I do truly mean them, and I'm thinking about it right now. This is my 40th year in broadcasting. But I have never, throughout that entire time, whether it was broadcast television, news at the local level, or doing the Outdoor Magazine TV show, at the state level, and then for a while on the Outdoor Channel, the Sportsman Channel, and Men's Channel, all that stuff. At this point right now in my life, at this point now in my career, I have never enjoyed what I'm doing more than I do now. I have never felt more passionate about what I'm doing than I am right now. And I have you to thank for that. Well, I have God first and foremost to thank for that, but I have you here on earth to thank for this. because you are the reason that allows me to do the radio show and the podcast version of and the podcast network and all the social media stuff that's out there these days. So I thank you. The fact that you are hearing my voice right now means a lot to me, and I do greatly appreciate it. I am also very appreciative and very blessed about the people that I've had a chance to work with over the years. I've truly met and worked with some wonderful, first-class, knowledgeable experts in the fields of hunting and fishing. And some of those people have been crossover, like Tim Roller, who's coming up here in just a second. I first met Tim on a fishing trip as he was guiding for his Ultimate Outfitters Guide Service. And we got talking about hunting, and I found out he was a very, very passionate whitetail hunter. Eventually, Tim became a pro staffer for the Outdoor Magazine television show, and then went on to bigger and better things and did his own show. But he's in my opinion, a hunting and a fishing expert. These days, you might see Tim also involved in a quest to help people lose weight and become more healthy. So he's a very diverse man. He's a very passionate man, and he is a very good guest here on the Outdoor Magazine radio show. And that's why it's always a pleasure, Tim Roller, my friend, to have you along with us. How are you?
I'm doing good, Mike. Thanks, as always.
Yeah, always a pleasure. So listen, I'm looking right now at a recent post you made on Facebook, and you say, a part of the post is, it's always deer season. And deer season's in quotes. You're not out hunting deer right now, but what do you mean by that?
Well, I think for a lot of people, and I mean, for those, especially myself, deer hunting has made up my professional career for the last nearly 25 years. Aside from that, I have an incredible passion for it. That's why I got into it. So I'm always thinking that whatever I'm passionate about, and I think that's the same with anybody. Whatever you're passionate about, you're always wanting to do it. You're always thinking about it. And over the years, it's just constantly evolved into what more can I do to be successful in the fall? How can I keep myself engaged in the activities that I love, centered around deer hunting? And so, it's turned into a year-round thing. There's always something I can be doing to improve the grounds that I get to hunt on, or to inventory what I have to hunt, to hone my skills, all those things. So, it all relates back to deer season. So in some way or another,
it's always deer season. Well, all right, let's go through these. You said improve the ground that you have access to hunt. I'm thinking you're talking food plots, property management?
Yeah, all that stuff. And it goes more, food plots is a big part of it, but it also goes into entry and exits. It goes into cameras, surveying what animals are around. It goes into creating bedding areas. It goes into funneling deer, creating pinch points, manipulating, trying to get those animals to go and do what I want them to do.
But they're wild critters, and you say manipulate them to get them to do what you want. Is that... obviously it's possible, or you wouldn't waste your time doing it. But what are the odds of making that happen?
Well, I think they're pretty good if you're careful, if you know what you're doing, and a lot of that just comes with experience, trial and error, a lot of error. You learn, at least myself, I learn more from mistakes than I do from positive outcomes. And so it's a lot of years. It's pushing 35 years now. I guess it is a little over 35 years of just being around whitetails and constantly wanting to get better at doing what I want that experience to be for me. That's different for everybody. But can that happen? Oh, yeah, you can definitely do that.
I'm really interested in this concept of entry and exit into an area, because many of us, myself included, I walk the same trails in, I walk the same trails out, and I know the deer have me patterned far better than I have them patterned. That's a very important part of at least a hunt at your level with mature bucks.
Probably the most important part. You can have the biggest deer to hunt, you can have the best spot to go, you can have the best food for them, you can have the best security cover where they're going to be moving in daylight. If you can't get in and out of there without alerting them to you being there, it's all for naught. I mean, especially mature deer, they'll find you out real quick and they'll just relocate. And most deer, for that matter, you can have deer going all summer. You'll watch them hitting the same place, an hour before dark every day leading up to season. You go in there a couple days, and all of a sudden now it's the last 10 minutes, and then it's not at all. They're nocturnal at that point. They catch on real quick. So entry and exits are probably one of the most underthought things that hunters utilize or think about, really, and it's one of the most important.
Is there always going to be a way to get in and out undetected, or are there certain areas that, listen, you can't get into them because of wind direction or blocked by a roadway or whatever? Are there certain spots you just can't sneak into?
Yeah, for sure. And that's what makes those spots really good. And I think that's where people tend to, at least what I've seen in the past, and I've done this, right? So when I was trying to figure all this out, I did this where, I knew I had a good deer I wanted to hunt, and he was using this area, and I'm going in after him. Well, the problem is you never see him again. As soon as you alert him to that, you might get lucky that first time in, but it's going to be luck if conditions aren't right and you're just using a bad entry or exit coming out. I've learned that there's just areas that I can't get in and out of, and I let those deer have those areas as secured areas. They feel secure there. They feel safe in those areas. I don't want to alert or change them that. I'll hunt the fringes. I'll find the nearest possible place that I can ambush those deer as they're coming in and out of those areas, and I can get in and out of so they don't know that. If I can't create an area that I can get in and out of without, for the most part, alerting them, I'm not going to do it. And many times, some of my best areas, I can only hunt a handful of times, if that, throughout a season, because conditions have to be absolutely perfect.
Speaking of that, I think another mistake the casual deer hunter, myself included, make is hunting the same spot over and over. You walk in the same way, but if you don't have access to a lot of property or whatever the reason is, you tend to hunt the same stand, the same blind over and over. But I got to believe your most effective hunt in a situation like that is the very first time you sit there.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, your first time in is, when I look at especially the biggest deer that I've killed over the years, the vast majority of those are first or second time I ever hunted that spot. And most of them, as I look at probably my top, as I think real quick here, my top 6 bucks that I've killed in my life were all first time sits.
With that in mind, one of the keys would be, if you can, is to have access to as much property as possible.
Well, that is never going to hurt, of course. But, I think but I don't have access to that stuff. So I have to be really smart. And I think this is where you've got to, and this is the hardest part. If you love to hunt, but you want to be specific on the animal that you're trying to get, you've got to limit yourself on how many times you hunt, and you've got to limit it down to the perfect times. And that's where cameras, again, have become such a tool for me. And now taking it to the cell camera, where you can put those cameras up ahead of time, and you don't have to go in and out of there. They can tell you what's going on. And so you can wait until the right time and the right conditions and go in there and give yourself the best chances. Now, there's no guarantees, but when you can get to a point where you limit yourself from hunting, because in the end, it's the best thing that's going to give you the most success or the chance at success moving forward, that's somewhat of a turn I see in people when they can get to that point.
Well, we're talking discipline there.
Mm-hmm.
Discipline and maturity as a hunter.
And it just comes from time. I've got spots that I know that if I just want to go sit out and my conditions aren't right for what I would call my better spots, I always have spots that I can go and just sit. And maybe I'll see some deer, maybe I won't.
Just to be out there.
Yeah, got to be out there.
We're talking with Tim Roller of Whitetail Journey, the website whitetailjourney.com, whitetailjourney.com. Have to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. But when we come back, I want to talk more with this guy that I've known for a long time and find so very interesting and knowledgeable, and I will pick his brain after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Newberry on WNBY. It's 1450 a.m. You can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC, 660 a.m. and 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Wilds Plumbing and Heating. Plumbing, heating, air conditioning, ductwork cleaning, sump pumps, furnaces, you name it. Anything to keep your house, the mechanics of your house running smoothly, to keep you comfortable, to keep you dry. The folks from Wilds can help you out. And every time I do this, I think, I got to call them. I got to get them over to do the air conditioning tune-up. I should have done this weeks ago, but I keep forgetting. Well, don't do what I do. Don't keep forgetting. Give them a call now. You can find the website. You find the phone number on their website, wildsplumbingandheating.com. That's wildsplumbingandheating.com. They've taken care of me for 20 years now. They've done a great job, and I know they will for you as well. wildsplumbingandheating.com. While you're online, please check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and then head on over to whitetailjourney.com. Whitetailjourney.com, the website of Tim Roller. You know Tim. He's been around the outdoor scene here in Michigan for many, many years. He was a pro staffer for the old Outdoor Magazine TV show. He was a fishing guide. At one time, one of his clients caught a world record brown trout out of the Manistee River. Went on to produce his own show, Whitetail Journey. And Tim, I got to ask you, last time you and I talked, you told me there was some big things in the works, but you weren't ready to say more. Has anything changed? Anything going on we should know about?
Really? That's what you're going to do?
Really? That's where we're going to go, huh? No, I'm just curious. Listen.
Thanks for the heads up on
hey,
that.
No. No, listen, you don't have to, but I'm just saying, I think I know where things are going. But I don't want you to talk about them until you're ready. So if you're not, we'll hold the conversation for some other time. I just wanted to give you the option. It's out there.
No, I get it. I'm just messing with you. I think the cat's out of the bag probably at this point that I've decided to kind of stop doing the TV show. And it was really probably a couple years in the making, probably even more than that. But yeah, it was just time. It was 17 years.
17 years?
Yeah. How crazy is that?
Man, that doesn't seem possible.
17 seasons we ran between Wild Addiction, which was the original show, and then we changed the format to all whitetail and switched the name to Whitetail Journey.
Wow.
And so, yeah, just it was time for a lot of reasons. And yeah, that's it.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you feel like there's been a tremendous burden lifted from your shoulders?
You know, I don't know that I've got to that point yet. I think that will really hit more so as we get closer to fall and go through fall. I do know it's freed up a tremendous amount of time and a certain amount of stress of preparing for the fall and all that goes into that. You know, I don't have to tell you this, but I think a lot of people, I heard this throughout the years, that I have the dream job. And listen, I'm not going to, for a moment, disagree in the fact that I absolutely loved what I did and was fortunate enough to do, you know, something related to what I'm pretty passionate about. I was able to turn that into a profession. But I will tell you, unless you've been in it, in the word I hate the most, the industry, as they call it, the hunting industry, and all that goes along with that, there's nothing about that I will miss. It is a cutthroat. It is just an evil place sometimes. And I made some incredible relationships with people, and there are some really good people in there. But it is not what you think it is.
You're singing my song, brother.
And that's all I got to say about that.
No, I understand. So listen, maybe any thought, listen, I know you got a lot of things going on, but any thoughts of getting back into the fishing side of the business at all?
Not the business side. No, I'm going to go back to fishing.
Good.
And I'm going to go back to hunting. It's been, I don't remember when I was able to just go through a season and hunt by myself if I wanted to. I've always had someone with a camera above my shoulder for the last almost 20 years. So, and that's been cool. It's been fine. It makes long days go by. We've been able to capture some incredible moments But there's going to be times now where I'm just going to go out and hunt, and I'm going to enjoy that, I think. And I'm going to go back and fish, and I'm going to be able to take people fishing and not the pressure and everything that goes along with guiding and all that.
I am very happy for you. I can't tell you how happy I am for you because I've been through this. I know what it does. I know what the industry, the business side of the industry can do to somebody, especially that TV side of it. And it was the best professional move I ever made getting out of that cutthroat rat race. And so I'm really happy for you. You're going to enjoy life a lot more now, I think.
Well, I appreciate that.
But while I've got you here, I know I've been telling you for a while. But while I've got you here, I got to pick your brain. And you mentioned scouting. Let's go back to a step here. Summertime scouting. How beneficial is it really when, as you said, this time of year and for the next few weeks, you could see a bachelor group of beautiful bucks out there every night, but come fall, they're gone. So what good is scouting this time of year? What good does it really do you?
Oh, it just makes me happy. I just love watching deer. So, yeah, is it helping me come fall? Sometimes. But most of the time your deer are going to relocate, especially your bucks as they come out of velvet. And as they get closer to rut, a lot of times bucks will relocate. So some of the deer that you have on your property are going to leave, but you're also going to get new deer coming in. The patterns now do not translate into patterns the end of October.
And I guess that and I guess that was my point. Just because you see a big buck out there now doesn't mean he's going to be there come hunting season. Not
at all. No, he might be 5 miles away, but he might be there. You know, and if it's consistent as you get closer to the season, your best chance to kill him is going to be right when it opens. But you better capitalize pretty quick because he's going to figure it out real fast. You mentioned scouting with game cameras, trail cameras, whatever you want to call them, especially the new cell version of. For one thing, the price has really come down on these things, hasn't it? Yeah. Well, and it's just like anything else. You know, as you get competition in the market, it's always going to drive the price down. The quality is a ton better every year. There's more features. The plans are the big thing with the cell cameras, right? The cellular plans, and those have come way down. And so, yeah, I probably maybe 5 years at the most. I would say that traditional cameras are going to be somewhat obsolete. I think this is going to be the option. So how do we take advantage of this technology? How do we use these things? Well, I use them an awful lot like, I did traditional cameras. Here's where I'm finding out that I can get away with a lot more with these is I'll go into those areas that I won't go into during hunting season, whether it's bedding areas, whether it's security areas, transition areas that I just can't get in and out of safely. I can go in there before season starts, hang a camera, and go back and get it after the season's done. And yet I can monitor what's going on in there, when the deer are coming in and out of there, what deer are going in and out of there, and what times. When I start seeing daylight movement of more mature deer, then that tells me what's happening, and I can go hunt those outsides or those fringes close to those areas. And you leave these cameras up year-round? Yeah, I don't leave them up year-round. Now they're coming out even now, some cost-effective ways of they've got little solar units that you can plug into them and attach to the tree. So you technically could leave them up. You're not a slave to battery. You're always going to be, anything that runs on batteries, sooner or later, you're going to have to go in there and get them out of there. Most of my cameras, I will bring them out. I'll let them run for up to a month after season ends just to see, because I want to take an inventory of what deer made it. I also want to see when deer start shedding. And then, for 3-4 months there, I'll pull my cameras out, go over them, make sure everything's good with them, replace batteries, and get ready to put them back up late spring, early summer. And where do you put them? It's a generic, basic question, but specifically, where are you putting these cameras? I mean, are you getting bedding areas, travel areas, feeding areas, what? Yeah, all of that. I mean, it just depends on time of the year. It depends on what I'm trying to accomplish on that property. they're a tool, right? So they're not going to be the end all be all. Just because you put a camera up doesn't mean you're going to kill a big deer, and you can't just randomly putting up. It's just like you can't randomly go throw a tree stand up and be successful. You can do that, and you're going to get pictures of deer if you just go randomly put them out. But I use them as a tool to get as fine-tuned as I can on a situation. And that situation is going to change throughout the year or in that particular place. So I use them in all those scenarios that you mentioned and more. Some of them will be up for a week or two just to get some recon on what's going on in that particular spot at that particular time. And then I get out of there as soon as I find out what I want to know. Other ones will be up for months on end. There's so many variables.
How many cameras might you have out at the peak of the season?
30-ish.
And they're dinging all night long on your phone, aren't they? They're sending you alerts.
Well, no, you gotta know how to work with notifications too.
I was fishing with a guy yesterday, and his phone wouldn't shut up. I said, "Man, are you that busy?" He said, "No, it's my trail camera." Hey, listen. Before I let you go, you are very much involved now in helping people lose weight and getting them healthy.
Yeah.
I'll give you a blatant chance for self-promotion here. Is there a website or something, Tim, that you've got set up for that side of the business?
I don't, and because it's a much more personal thing. Listen, it changed. 3 years ago, I lost 90 pounds in 6 months, and I needed to do that for my future. And what it did was it inspired a bunch of other people that I wasn't even planning on. And I had people wanting to know what I did, and I've been able to help them along the way. And that's continued to just grow and grow and kind of almost, I don't want to say get out of control, but it's become a pretty passionate deal for me when you have people calling you and telling you saved their life or their husband or their future. And anytime I can help somebody with something like that, if somebody's struggling with their health, and a lot of times it's not even just weight loss, it can be whatever. It's just health. We're just trying to get people healthy. And so if somebody's interested in that, look me up on Facebook, send me a message, and I'm happy to talk to anybody that wants to talk about it.
Tim Roller, always a pleasure. I am so happy for you in making a move. I'm confident it'll be a wonderful move. But I will stay in touch with you. You're not off my radar screen. I'm going to continue to bring you on here and pick your brain if you don't mind.
I hope so, Mike. I enjoy it.
All right, my friend Tim Roller of Whitetail Journey, or the man formerly known as the host of Whitetail Journey. We'll take a break. When we come back, a few more thoughts, and then we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM, long-time Outdoor Magazine affiliate. And on a couple of more long-time affiliates, WSGW in Saginaw, AM and FM, 790 AM and 100.5 FM. I'm in their studios right now. And for this 3 hours, this part of the building is called the Outdoor Magazine Studio. And I have a graphic behind me to prove that. I'm here with Pat Johnston doing a wonderful job, as always, Pat. I do appreciate it. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader Landscaping can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let them create an outdoor getaway in your backyard. Let them maintain what you have, improve what you have. Backyard patio, backyard fire pit. Hey, this is the time of year, right, when you want to spend as much time outdoors as you can. So let the folks from Reader help you out. Check them out online at readerlandscaping.com. That's Reader, R-E-D-E-R, readerlandscaping.com. Mowing, maintenance, spraying, fertilizer, you name it. The folks from Reader can help you out. I really enjoyed that conversation with Tim Roller, and I'll be honest with you, I sent him a quick text here during the break, and I said, I didn't mean to spring that question on you about getting out of television, because I kind of knew it was coming. He had told me off the record it was coming, so that was my opportunity, I thought, to give him a chance. He said, I was just messing with you. Don't worry about it. It's out there. Everybody knows about it. It is interesting, though. I know exactly what Tim is saying. Now, I would never discourage anybody from trying to live their dream, from trying to fulfill a desire, a quest, a craving. And if that craving somehow involves getting into the business side of the outdoors, then God bless you. You know, you've got to do it. You have to do it. Because if you don't, you'll spend the rest of your life saying, what if, what if, what if? But there are, and listen, I've lived this for almost 40 years now, the business side of the outdoors, and it's been wonderful. And it's been a great career for me, and it's been a blessing for my family, for the most part. But like everything, there are good things and there are bad things. And I got to be honest, the dark side of the outdoor industry, as Tim was saying, it's nasty. It's nasty. And it's not like you see it on TV. And it was a hard decision for me to get out of it myself. But it was the best professional decision I've ever made, to get out of outdoor television. It's a world of make-believe. It's a world of high pressure. It's a world of sleazy and dishonest networks. It's a world of... It's just a lot of pressure. And a lot of pressure I'm glad to have gone, believe me. So I wished him nothing but the best and nothing but luck. And I still, even today, I have people on a regular basis come to me and say, hey, I'm thinking about starting an outdoor television show. What do you recommend? And I say, I recommend you don't do it. Don't do it. But I really want to. This is a passion. Well, okay, then if you feel compelled, driven, led, then you have to do it. But just know that the best way to become a millionaire in outdoor television is to start out with $2 million. Oh, what else? On that happy note, this is the first full weekend of summer. Although the weather, at least last week, now the forecast for the weekend looks a little bit better, but some of the weather last week was kind of screwy, wasn't it? Kind of crazy. There were I think my last 3 trips on Saginaw Bay while I fishing aboard the Angler Quest, I think I was blown off. And it takes a pretty good wind to force me in on the Angler Quest. And realistically, I could have stayed out there. I could have fished. The boat could take it. But it's a matter of, how much do the people on the boat want to deal with. That Angler Quest can take far more water than I can. But look, I can pick and choose my days for the most part. I didn't drive 3-4 hours to get there, so I feel, compelled or obligated to go out when it's nasty. No, I live 20 minutes down the road, so I can kind of pick and choose my days. And I'm picking and choosing as many as I can right now, and I feel like I've gotten my mojo back. I've told you I was struggling earlier in the summer because I had to leave my skinny water and go out deeper, and I struggled for a while, but feel like I've got my mojo back now, and all is good. And the skinny water is starting to show some signs of heating up. What more could I ask for? I'll tell you what more I could ask for. Come July 6th, to go to the DNR website and say, congrats, Mike Avery. You have a bear tag. I would honestly rather get a bear tag than I would an elk tag. I know an elk tag is a bigger trophy because they're harder to get, but if I had my choice, If the director of the DNR, Dan Eichinger, came to me and said, Avery, we're going to give you one of 2 tags. You get a bear tag or an elk tag. Which one do you want? I'd take the bear tag, hands down. But I know a lot of you would take an elk tag. We'll find out July 6th. I have to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar. I don't know what he has in store for us now. I would suspect it's a fish recipe. But we'll find out more after the break. A reminder, you can always reach out to me. The email address is mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, and the website is mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name is Mike Avery, and it has been a pleasure to spend some time with you this week. I appreciate your time. I would encourage you to join me during the week on social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all that good stuff. You can always reach me if you want, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and my website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And if you've been with me before, you know, I like to wrap up each week's show with a good friend of mine, wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar, and this week is no exception. David, welcome back. How are you?
Doing excellent. This weather, nice and clear, a lot of days, just makes you feel good, doesn't it?
It does make you feel good, unless you're out there on the water getting your head beat in with 30-mile-an-hour winds.
Our winds, you're right. It's been a really windy summer for boating, hasn't it?
Hey, you know, it seems like it, but hey, as I was saying earlier in the show, that's part of hunting and fishing, right? You deal with what the critters or the fish and Mother Nature hands you.
Exactly. Just got to, like you said, deal with it.
Deal with it, yeah. And if you're lucky, you might end up with a little something for the table, and I suspect you've got something for us this week.
I do, because there's a lot of sheephead out there, and this could be a recipe for walleye and or sheephead.
Sheephead?
They're good. I'm telling you. Okay, just use walleye. Forget the
No. I'm going to picture this whole thing with sheephead. Now, go ahead.
Okay. So you need about 8 to 10 ounces of filet per person. On the sheephead, they got a layer of red meat right underneath the skin. You want to trim that off so you only have the white meat, and that makes it taste a lot better. So what I'd like to do, like I said, 8 to 10 ounces of filet per person, boneless, skinless, of course. And then you want to soak overnight in milk, or just a few hours would be good too. So also, what you want to do then, you're going to take that out, let it drain, pat it off after that. So you need about a half a cup of fine diced onions, 3 to 4 cloves of garlic, again, diced very fine. The capers, this is the kicker of the meal. So you want to use the little ones. They'll say new parlant français, and so that's the no parallel ones. They're really good. About 1 tablespoon, maybe 2, depending on your flavor. You need about 5 ounces or so of a white wine, whatever, Chablis, Chardonnay, so that would be good. Juice of a lemon to your taste, a little sprinkling of white pepper. If you're using just dry Drake's mix, or you can use the spicy Zatarain's. I like the spicy Zatarain's. You can zip that up to your flavor. You need about a half a jar of chicken gravy, some olive oil to saute with. I like to put Roma tomatoes. You cut these in half, and you pound it out, kind of, cut it across so that you're going to knock them seeds right out. So, and that's really good. Then you dice that up. You need about 2 cups of thin sliced mushrooms, which is good. You pat the fillets off in a nice hot frying pan with some of the olive oil. Start it with the skin side up. So when you flip it, you're going to have a nice crispy fillet with the rib side facing the diner. Set that on the side for a minute. So you're going to saute all of this stuff up that we just mentioned: tomatoes, capers, lemon, mushrooms, white wine, all of that. Bring onions and garlic. Bring that up to a boil. Cook it down a little bit to make it nice and thick. Taste it, and if it's to your flavor, I'd like to lay that in an oven-proof casserole and put these crispy fillets on top. So what you'll do then, 350-degree oven for maybe 10 minutes tops, because once you brown that fillets off, you're going to have it 3/4 of the way cooked. So there you go. Take the fillets out. You can lay the sauce down, the mixture down, set the fillets back on top of individual plates. It's a great way. I mean, I'm telling you, I love capers. I make a lot of different dishes with capers.
So you're telling me the sheephead that I throw back in disgust, I'm, no pun intended, missing the boat?
You are. We've done sheephead recipes in the past, and people have emailed me, and you too, to say, I can't believe how good they are.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I've said this before, Dave. You could take an old work shoe and cook it up and make it taste good. But
that'd be kind of like filet of sole, you think?
You got
No
me.
pun intended.
You got me on that one. Oh, on that note, I think it's time to. All right, Dave. Listen, I appreciate that. That was a good one. But I do find it interesting though that a lot of these things like woodchucks that most people wouldn't eat, or possum that most people wouldn't normally eat. Man, you embrace it and you do a great job with it. So you're a master, my friend, and I appreciate your time each week.
Thank you. And I try to pass my knowledge on to everybody that will listen to me.
And you do a great job, and I'm happy to listen each week. Wild Game Chef Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show. As I said earlier, so are you, because if you weren't listening, there'd be no reason to do this show. I'd have to find something else to do, and even though I'm a year older this weekend, I am not ready to retire. Well, I'm not. I mean, we'll see what the big guy has in store for me, but I'm not ready to retire. I plan on being around for a long, long time. The email address is mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Feel free to reach out to me. Comments, questions, criticisms, suggestions for the Ask Avery segment. mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. The website is mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Content up there is pretty good. We're going to tweak the look of it a little bit here in the next few weeks. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn. And check out the Instagram page. I really want to grow that page. If you're on Instagram, check out Mike Avery Outdoors. All right, my folks, my friends, have a great week. We'll talk to you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.